So I'm going to make a video of me telling James, who's my sidekick, who's right here. Wave, James, where they can see. There he is. And hopefully somebody will get something out of my great plethora of wisdom. I thought something that I've always known and should share with people is how to nail a job interview. Right, James? Because if you want to go work for a company, you got to apply for a job, right?
Yep.
And then if they like your papers, they call you in for an interview, right?
Okay.
This is where most people blow it. You know why?
Why?
Because they come in and they say, "Hey, Dan, how's it going?" Good. And let's go in here and sit down, and then I'm going to ask you questions, and you're going to give me specific answers, you know? Like they might say, "Can you tell me about a time where you had to deal with a very stressful situation?" You know? And the average person will just respond like, "Hey, well, I was working at Taco Bell, and it was really a huge line of cars, and it was really stressful, da-da-da-da." Very unremarkable. So here's what you got to do when preparing for the interview. It all starts before you ever go in there, right? Look on their website, okay? Find out everything you can about that company, right? And that way you have some information, some good information. Because let's say someone comes in and they say, "You know, I want to talk to you about family. I want to hear about your family." Well, they don't really want to hear about your family. Actually, what they want is they want to talk about their family, right? When you're doing a job, especially if you're a supervisor or a manager that does the hiring, you don't want to hear about what some other company was doing or what you were doing at some other company. You really want to talk about your company, right? So you go in and you tell them, "Listen, I just really appreciate the opportunity to work here. I know that your company is the 6th largest producer of blah blah blue in the Midwest. And honestly, you're obviously doing it right. I'd love to learn your processes. And I tell you, I just honored to be a part of it." Right? And then it goes on like that. And the main thing is just more or less let them know, you know, that you know what the job is, you know all about the company, and you're ready to come in and you just want to be a part of the team, you know? And if they say, let's say they say something like, you know, "Can you tell me about a time where you faced a really difficult decision and what you did in that situation?" Best thing you can say is something like, "You know, honestly, in my life, and not just at work, but just generally speaking, I've dealt with every kind of individual that you could imagine, and I've dealt with lots and lots of different types of situations. If you don't mind me asking, what would be the type of critical decision that you'd have to make in this job? What do you guys struggle with, or what's the most critical part of the operation, and how could I help with that? Maybe I can give you some specifics." You know, I hear so much about people that have trouble finding work, and often feel because they're a minority, you know, like they're not giving black people the opportunities, or Hispanic people, whatever it may be, right? And, you know, they're hiring me because I'm white. And I think to myself, you know, I don't know of any company who's out here looking to hire, they don't have enough middle-aged white schlubs like me. I don't know any company that would rather hire me than, let's say, a pretty girl. You definitely have a biological advantage if you're a pretty girl. Anyway, point being, the only time I have ever been able to get a job is when I've been able to convince them that I'm going to add something to the picture. I'm going to help the company in some way make more money. I'm trying to think about the last time I got a job. It's been a long time since I've really gotten a job. Because I haven't worked. How long has it been since I worked?
What?
How long has it been since I had a job?
Probably, like a year or two, I don't know.
I think it's been like...
Is that where Ocean's Place is? Or...
No,
Okay.
We're close. I mean, it was just back there. Well, I did work at the DCS nonprofit provider, but that really was a little bit different because that job required very specific credentials, even to the point where they examine your college transcripts and make sure that you have exactly the classes that you've needed to work that type of job. So there wasn't much of what you would call an interview, especially because Steve worked there and more or less brought me up and said, hey, I think Dan could do this job. And then she was like, have him to send my, what do you call it, resume and college transcripts and all that. Prior to that, what was I doing before that? Oh, that's right, I was doing the solar company. Well, actually it's funny because I've been wanting to make a video about solar and residential solar. It's a bad idea. I literally love solar, and I thought, this is a way I could be a part of it, is by going and selling the systems and, overseeing the systems going in. So that was a little bit different type of deal also. Before that, I guess I worked at the plastic factory, right? See, you're going back a ways. You're going back like 7 years or something like that. 8 years. Anyway, that's exactly what I did, though. I went in, sat down, they called me in there, and they just said, I'm just fascinated by what you guys do. It's so cool. I can't remember now, but, you make these NBA backboards. That was one of the things they made, is the clear backboards of all different sizes. It was pretty cool. And just more or less, there's one thing that's just irresistible, and that is enthusiasm. Doesn't matter what type of job you're in, if you go at it enthusiastically, you're always going to get people on your side. Can you think of anything else that would be good to mention having to do with trying to find a job? I actually think nowadays a staffing service is what's up, because essentially what they make money doing is placing an employee into a company, right? So they're not looking to disqualify you. When you're talking about any other type of job, they got 20 applicants or whatever and 3 openings, essentially they're wanting to disqualify 17 of the applicants. But with a staffing service, they want to get everybody they can, and you may not be able to fill every job, but they'll put you somewhere, and if you're a half-decent employee and show up, usually they'll hire you on full-time. That's a real easy way to get a job. if I had to get a job today, what would I do? I think I'd pick the place I really wanted to work and just, in the nicest way humanly possible, kind of bug the crap out of them until they hire me, you know? And just, like I said, use the enthusiasm, and, you know, I'm just really wanting to be a part of what you guys are doing. I think what you guys are doing is awesome. But really, it's like, which one's close to the house? Don't ever underestimate something being close to home, right? Alright, so the video has went 10 minutes and 45 seconds. Huh. So pretty much everything I know about applying for interviewing for a job is 10 minutes worth. That doesn't seem like very much. I don't know if anybody got any real good advice. What do you think, James?
Yeah, you did give some good tips.
The main thing is arm yourself with information. And some people will say, you know, interview the interviewer. I don't think of it like that, but go in there with some questions in mind that you'd like to find out, you know. And then it never hurts to say, like, what is the highest level that you're authorized to pay for this type of position. That's, in the sales game, they call that the assumptive close. And I do think that if they do decide to hire you, they will say, well, they'll let us pay up to $17.50 an hour. And that usually that's what they'll give you, you know? Alright, that was a bonus tip. Until next time, YouTube land, this is Dan and James, signing off.